Hello, everybody. Hopefully, you can hear us coming through loud and clear. This is another handler hangout that we're having here on Oculo Grove. I am going to be the moderator today, so I will be reviewing the hands up requests. Of course, if you have a question, all you have to do is raise your hand there at the bottom. That'll put you in the list. Obviously, we won't be able to get to everybody because we only have an hour here today, but we'll get through as many as we can. In order to keep things moving quickly, we are going to start removing people after they've asked their question. So please ask your question, and then you can either back out or I will remove you from the stage so that we can answer the question and get on quickly to the next person. And that way, just get as many people as we can, because we always have so many people left over. I think the only other thing of note is that once again, this is being recorded. So if you do have any issues with using your real voice to ask the question, recorded or otherwise, don't be afraid to shoot me your question through a message, and I will do my best to pull that up if you get selected from the list of hands up. Today we have a very special episode because not only do we have the always incredible monster handler Matt, but we also have a couple of monster handlers in training who have been working with us for only a few short months, I believe, maybe even less. And they'll be able to tell you a little bit about what they do. Maybe I'll hand it off to them right now so they can do a very brief introduction. So I'll raise my hand and I'll say, hey, Monster Handler in Trainings, what have you been doing here?
Hi everyone, I am Bianca, Monster Handler in Training Bianca, I guess that is. And I am currently interning for Big Blue Bubble and I help run the social media.
Oh, hi everyone. I am Monster Handler in Training Tyson, and I've been here for a few months also, and I am also helping with the social media and everything like that. So we're having fun, and also I'm excited because I am a Monster Handler in Training, meaning I want to learn a little bit more from Monster Handlers Eric and Matt. So this is probably the best time for me to learn more, so I'm taking notes as this is going on as well.
There's never a better time to learn more from Monster Handler Matt than these handler hangouts, because the community always has incredible, thoughtful questions, and the answers that come out of Matt's mouth are simply amazing. Monster Handler Matt, are you ready to answer some of these questions?
You bet I am, Monster Handler Eric. Hi, Monster Handlers in Training Bianca and Tyson. So pleased to have you joining us today for this end of July 2021 Handler Hangout, formerly known as the AMAs. Ask me anything. But I like the new name Handler Hangout a lot more. That was another Monster Handler in Training suggestion, I believe.
I believe so.
Yeah, maybe we'll hear from her in a future one. I don't know, but I know that she's diligently working behind the scenes, helping with the recording of today's hangout. So very excited to get started.
And we are about to get started. Just in case anyone's just joining us, a quick reminder, we do have a couple of Monster Handlers in training. So if you do have any questions for them specifically, this is the hangout to ask. But of course, we do have Monster Handler Matt here as always for the deep, intense questions. Okay, first up, let's invite Grubby to ask a question. Grubby, you have been invited to speak. If you do not wish to speak, please shoot me a message. Okay, we will come back to Grubby once we get a message. Since they don't seem to be coming up to speak, we are going to try to move along pretty quickly. So we will instead invite to speak Holly Will 06. You have been invited to speak.
Hi. I got a question. Will there be magical monsters with the air element in it?
Thank you, Holly Will, for your question. Will there be magical monsters with the air element in it? Yes, from a monster world standpoint, from a lore standpoint, it is a bit unusual that the element of air is not currently represented in any of the hybrids on the magical islands. But from a behind-the-scenes standpoint, I can share that the reason for that is that we wanted to make sure that there was the maximum number of diverse fire monsters that were available on the magical islands, specifically the triple element fire monsters on those islands. So monsters like Thrumble and Souza and Zigarab, monsters like that. So that was the reason why air was omitted, because air is, of course, doubly represented on the fire islands. Could there be magical hybrids that contain the element of air out there? Potentially. From a game design standpoint, though, we wanted to make sure that we had good coverage for new fire monsters that were going to be on each of the magical islands, and that's why we did that the way we did.
Very good. Okay, this next question might come from Brumpstan account number 1. You've been invited to speak.
Hello. I was wondering what goes into the design process of designing a Titan or a Colossal?
That's a wonderful question, Brumpstan. Obviously, when we are taking a look at introducing a new island to My Singing Monsters, one of the things that we try to do is first make sure that it doesn't look too similar to any of the Titans or Colossals that are already out there in the wild. Obviously, the idea of Titans was first introduced with the island skins that started coming out. I guess it was 2 SummerSongs ago, actually, or at least 2 summers ago. It was, I believe, summer of 2019 when Vegetable Medley first made its appearance. But in terms of designing them, it's always important for us to make sure that they have a sense of scale and majesty to them beyond that of your typical singing monster. Whether that's playing with the idea of scale, such as the size of the antlers on Enchantler, for example, or, to go back to the Vegetable Medley example of Harvard, just like the absolute hugeness of those, stalks of corn and of peas and of other delicious veggie treats. It's really important for us to try and make them as diverse as possible so that each feels like it has its own distinct personality. And of course, it's always important for us as well to try and complement that design with the sound of the island itself, with the song that has been composed for that particular Titan or Colossal.
Okay, up next, we are going to have... Sorry, I lost my requests. We have got Bubble Master, who appears to be part of the Scargo cult. You are invited to speak.
Yeah, I was wondering if Maulch wearing those glasses in the SummerSong trailer was a hint to Wublin Costumes.
Bubble Master, a hint of Wublin Costumes. Definitely an interesting notion. I can confirm for right now that in terms of costume offerings, we are focusing on natural monsters, on seasonal monsters, and of course, with the introduction of the new seasonal series that came out this SummerSong, the costume capabilities, the costume compatibilities of certain other monster classes was introduced for the very first time. Obviously, we've seen decorative costumes on Dipsters before for seasonal events like Spooktacle, like the Festival of Yay, but this marks the first time that you can actually buy them and own them, so that you can equip those costumes to your heart's content whenever you want them. So obviously, with new classes of monsters being compatible with costumes, such as Humbug, such as Talker, I think that the future is bright for costume compatibility coming to even more classes of monsters in the future. With respect to Maulch specifically, we didn't want to necessarily double up too much because, of course, we gave the Stark Raving glasses to Talker this particular SummerSong. So apologies to all the Maulch fans out there, but we wanted to make sure that Talker, and of course the pivotal role that it plays in the Wordo song on Earth Island, got its chance to shine this particular SummerSong. But who knows? The future is undecided, and I think that there are all sorts of exciting possibilities moving forward.
As a huge Maulch fan who makes the videos, it's the whole reason I included Maulch in the original DJ Epic video with those glasses. Give a little bit of style there. And then, of course, this year it was a sort of a callback to Maulch partying with the Dipsters since they went so hard in the water part of this year's remix. Okay, up next, we have a question from Jazzberry. Jazzberry, you've been invited to speak. Or now you should be invited to speak.
Hi.
Hello.
So my question is, once the continent song is all finished with all the monsters on it, do you have any future plans for Dawn of Fire?
Thank you for your question, Jazzberry. Yes, the Continent Song has been it certainly has been the longest work in progress in the history of any game or experience with My Singing Monsters, because, of course, when Dawn of Fire first came out in September of 2015, the continent was in an incomplete state at that point, and it's been contributed to, it's been expanded ever since with the introduction of new sort of legacy monsters from My Singing Monsters, those natural monsters that we all know and love from the natural islands, and also, of course, the discovery of new, heretofore unknown fire monsters like Incisor, like Tiawa, like Edamame, and ones that came in future updates. So, of course, we've always got a few tricks up our sleeves and what we've got planned for the future of Dawn of Fire, but you're right that we are focusing on the existing islands that we have right now, those particular worlds, making sure that those get completed. But I will mention, of course, that the Prism Gate is currently occupying a lot of the monster handlers' attention in terms of the discovery of these new colorful variants. Obviously, Prismatic Fog just made its debut just yesterday, actually, on Cave Island, which is very exciting. One of my favorite prismatics, because I think that they sort of harken back to the different frill patterns of ceratopsian dinosaurs. And if you didn't know, Monster Handler Matt is also a dinosaur nerd on top of being a monster handler. So I was very excited about that. But you're right, Jazzberry, that we still have a few missing branches on that family tree on the continent. We'll have to see if we can commit a bit more of the monster handler budget to expanded exploration of the unknown regions. Interesting.
Very interesting. Okay.
Very, very interesting.
Just as I get to this next question from Blooples, you have a split second to get ready, Blooples, so prepare yourself. I am going to ask anyone who might have a question for the monster handlers in trainings. Actually, please message me, because I realize the problem with the system is we don't know who might have questions that are relevant for a limited time. So please shoot me a message if you have a question specifically for monster handlers in training, Bianca and or Tyson. And that way we can make sure that they get that question while they're here.
Please do. Bianca is shaking in her seat, excited to get more questions from everyone.
In the meantime, there we go, Blooples. I almost lost you. You've been invited to speak.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so how exactly did you decide on the themes of the outer islands and off? Like, why were they specifically Party Island, Space Island, Cloud Island, and Cave Islands of anything else?
Great question, Blooples. When we were making Dawn of Fire, I know it was the intention to basically free ourselves of the constraints of any sort of specific elemental attachment. So I think one of the things that Monster Handler Dave, when he was composing the original Natural Islands and My Singing Monsters, felt is that by the end, from a creative standpoint, by the time we got to Earth Island, it was one of those things where, or the vast majority, with the exception of Chorister, the monster sounds had been discovered up until that point, and the entire composition of that island hinged on which elements were on it. So in Dawn of Fire, the assignment of the various sort of world or themes like space and cave and cloud and stuff like that actually came after, because the focus was instead on creating cool, unique compositions, pulling from whichever monsters Monster and the Dave, the composer, thought would work for what he was working on. So it's sort of neat. It was working from the opposite angle of worrying less about what the elemental formula of the island was going to be, and instead just wanted to make a cool composition plucking from the entire set of monsters that we could choose from. In a sense, it's sort of like the functionality of Composer Island and of the standalone app My Singing Monsters Composer, in the sense that you can combine different monster sounds together that wouldn't normally coexist canonically in the monster world because of the different elemental makeups of the island. So sort of the same idea there of wanting to make sure that we could pick and choose which monsters we wanted to go on those islands and not have to worry about, oh, well, I really want this monster on the island, but, Earth isn't on this island, that sort of thing.
All right, this next question comes from Alpha Wolf. Alpha Wolf, I am going to invite you to speak. If you prefer not to, I do have your question in a DM so I can ask it on your behalf. I'll just give you a second to pop in here if you want to ask it yourself.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. All right. So my question is for the sorry, for the MHIT. What monsters are your favorite, and what is the most part of your job that you like?
Okay. Thanks for asking that question. Happy monstering, by the way. Okay, so I have two answers for my favorite monsters. I really like Barb and I really like Wink, just like visually the way that they look. When it comes to sound, my favorite one is Sponge. And the favorite thing about my job is probably just interacting with people on social media. I see your comments. I read your comments when they're good and when they call me out on my mistakes. And it's been really fun to be able to interact with people and get them excited about the content that we have coming up for My Singing Monsters.
Great answer, Bianca. Okay, so loaded question because there's many monsters I love. I would say the one closest to my heart would probably be Fwog. I'm a big Fwog fan. Not sure why, just love Fwog. And my favorite part about my job, a few things. One, I am desk neighbors with Bill, so it's nice seeing Bill once in a while.
Bill's a good guy.
Bill is a great guy, hard worker,
Awesome guy.
awesome guy. And also, I work on a lot of the videos here, and it's fun going into the field and getting clips for like SummerSong and some teasers for some of the prismatics that are coming up or new monsters coming up. So that's really fun, and seeing everyone's reactions.
Okay, excellent. This next question will be coming from. We'll set up Captain here. Captain, you've been invited to speak. Captain, do you have a question for us?
Captain, I think you're muted if you've been speaking. Just double check that you are unmuted.
Okay, Captain, we can come back to you. Oh, maybe I got a message here. Can't unmute. All right, Captain, if you want to type your question out very quickly, I can ask it on your behalf here. If you need a minute, we can also come back to you after. Okay, we'll come back to Captain when I get that question. In the meantime, I believe we had another question for the monster handler in training. So, Yesbox, you've been invited to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so my question is that for the monsters handlers in training, is it like, do you guys get like exclusive looks at like what's gonna come to the game early before it comes?
Of course we do. That is the benefit of being a monster handler is getting the inside scoop as to what's going to come to the game and what new monsters are going to be featured or highlighted on our social media and on our in the game as well. So that's been one of the super cool benefits of working with the company is being able to get that inside scoop and know what's coming beforehand. So when we see your comments about things and we know what's going to happen, that makes it even more fun for us.
Jason, do you have anything to add to that answer?
I sure do. Yeah, like Bianca said, it's very nice seeing the inside scoop on everything, and it's great seeing stuff before everyone else because I'm like, oh yeah, everyone's gonna love this, and it just makes the anticipation much better and more exciting. And yeah, I love it.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we have our question from Captain. Captain would like to know, were any monsters inspired by fan ideas?
Sorry, can the question be repeated, please?
Were any monsters inspired by fan ideas?
That's a great question, Captain. Obviously, we love nothing more than to get the absolute treasure trove of awesome fan art and creations and monster pieces that the community creates. It gives us life. We love it. We circulate it around the office. Even those monster handlers at Big Blue Bubble who are sort of honorary monster handlers who aren't specifically working on the My Singing Monsters series of games, love to see them. So it's that is something that we absolutely relish. We look forward to. In terms of when we are actually designing monsters, we typically do not want to pull from any specific community-sourced ideas, just because it's important for us to, I think, sort of see the creative process from beginning to end, through all the way on all the various sort of checkpoints and approval processes for us. That said, of course, we're going to be very excited to collaborate with certain members of the community on the creation of new mythical monsters as part of the Ultimate Creator Experiences from the My Singing Monsters board game Kickstarter that we did in the month of June. So that'll be very exciting. That obviously is going to represent a specific example of us working with the community and being inspired by their awesome ideas and their creativity in order to bring these new monsters to life and hopefully one day eventually to the game as well.
Yes, that is going to be very exciting. This next question comes from Astrobot. Astrobot, you've been invited to speak.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I have question about new monsters, natural, Wublin, ethereal, and others.
Right, let's hear them.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Astrobot, was your question, are there more of those different types of monsters coming?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
New natural monsters or Wublins.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification. In terms of natural monsters, it's always funny. This is sort of there are a couple of different camps, I'd say, in the monster handler community about what qualifies as a natural monster. In Dawn of Fire, natural sort of is an umbrella that also encompasses fire monsters, because they're all sort of on equal footing in the monster world, and they all sort of have the same rules and behavior and stuff like that. So a flower, for example, back during the era of Dawn of Fire, is roughly equivalent to, say, a shrub or to a dandy-do. But, of course, in the contemporary monster world, fire monsters have this special status just because they've been disconnected for so long from the monster world. So, of course, I would say that there are new, in quotation marks, natural monsters to discover back during the era of Dawn of Fire, because, as we mentioned before, there are a couple of branches of that family tree that have left to be discovered, to be identified. Are there more ethereals out there? Not that I know of, because it's the ethereal family is formatted a little differently than other families in the sense that there's only single and double element monsters in that particular family. Of course, they have their rare cousins, and more recently the discovery of epic ethereals with the introduction of epic ghast. And with respect to Wublins as well, I'm not entirely sure what the future of Wublins may be. There are a couple of interesting ideas that are being kicked around in terms of what future development could happen on that particular island. I don't know if necessarily there would be new monsters but there might be new something. I don't want to give too much away because we haven't spoken about it that much in our big planning meetings, and it's not anything that we're planning on looking at anytime specifically soon, but there are a few cool ideas that have been floated, that have been kicking around, that might find their way to the game in the future. I wouldn't expect to see them during the year of the monster, but of course in 2022 will be the 10th anniversary of my Singing Monsters, which is going to be pretty wild. So who knows what the future may hold.
Very cool. Okay, this next question comes from one of the amazing officers of Oculo Grove, but they can't raise their hand because of a Discord bug. So I'll ask on their behalf, and they would like to ask if teleporting supernaturals to other islands would be possible, like with magicals.
Very interesting idea. Supernatural monsters, of course, a class defined specifically by the Wubbox and its creations, the Wublins. They've definitely been doing their own thing for a long time. Obviously, there's some supernatural representation on an island like Gold Island because Wubbox can be placed there. But other than that, the supernatural class has really been doing its own thing for a while. I don't know if there are if there's sort of any conflicts in interdimensional magic that would allow or prevent supernatural monsters from teleporting either from one area of the monster world to the other, or to a different dimension of the monster world. I'm not entirely sure. It would definitely be an interesting idea to explore in the future. So thanks for putting the bug in our ear.
This next question is coming from Math Wizard. Math Wizard, you've been invited to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. Quick question. So, you know how you have like Shugabush Island?
Yes.
We do. Yes.
Do you ever plan on making more islands like that, like covers of other songs? Or is it just that one because that was like a special thing?
What a great question to be asking on this Sugabush's birthday. It's Sugabush's birthday today. It's the 8th birthday of Shugabush. Can't believe the monster is 8 already. Gosh, they grow up so fast. But it's a great question, Math Wizard. The way that Shugabush Island came about was one of those sort of happy accidents that come along once in a blue moon or once in 2 blue moons, as is the case over Shugabush Island, because there's the moon from the human world and also the moon from the monster world that are visible in the night sky. That was such a unique experience of collaborating with Christian to bring Shugabush Island to life, and of course to create the Shugabush character in the first place. And I can say for the record that there are a few other artists in the monster world that we've been interested in working with or collaborating with, but so far the Shugabush Island experience is a unique one. What was so cool about that particular setup is that it was basically a good faith agreement between us, that it was just purely in the spirit of collaboration and of bringing music to life. There weren't a lot of pesky business details to worry about in that particular case, but that's not going to be the case for every single artist out there in the human world. And of course, if we were to cover other songs that people like, we'd want to make sure that that artist was involved in a meaningful way. So short of us sort of chasing down or being approached by any of these other artists in the future, for now, Shugabush Island is a unique experience in terms of that particular legendary collaboration.
So if any of you know any global recording artists who are interested, just pass them along. Let them know to reach out.
Or if you happen to be one, hit us up.
Yeah, maybe you're just in the AMA enjoying the answers. This next question comes from Scaly. Scaly, you've been invited to speak.
Hello.
Hello.
I got a question. Will there be any seasonal decorations? I mean, paths?
I think Scaly's question is, are there going to be any seasonal decorations that are categorized in the path filter, in the decorations category? A very interesting question, Scaly. You're right that we have some decorations, of course, for all of the seasonal events. Except Feastember, conspicuous absence there. Maybe the monsters will collaborate this year and give Gobligord the welcome that it deserves. So we'll see if that magic can happen. But you're right that we don't have any path decorations that are seasonally related. That might be an interesting thing to consider for the future. Thank you for the suggestion.
Very cool idea. This next question comes from Prismatic Gecko. Prismatic Gecko, you are invited to speak.
Hello. So my question is, do you think like how there is rares, epics, and the normal monsters, do you think that there's going to be like more like after rares and epics, something like MegaMonsters or something?
Ooh, Prismatic Gecko, MegaMonsters. I'd like to hear more about that. Yes, that's an interesting idea. Something, of course, that we've always tried to balance in the game is making an experience that is enjoyable and stable and reliable for people across various platforms. And of course, with My Singing Monsters set to celebrate its 9th anniversary in September, we've seen several generations of devices basically come and go. The kinds of phones and tablets that we were originally designing the game to run on. The majority of those have long since been retired, and there are all sorts of new and exciting devices coming along. But of course, the main consideration with adding an extra rarity tier, let's call it that, for something like MegaMonsters is just the memory and the sound channels and the physical space available to us on the islands. We were very fortunate to be able to come up with a resolution to be able to display all of the monsters on the natural islands with the introduction of the crystalline castles in June of last year. We were really pleased to be able to bring that to the game so that people could finally display all of their collections at once. I don't know if MegaMonsters is something that we're interested in exploring canonically, but I will mention that I've seen some absolutely amazing fan art of that new rarity tier, the tier beyond epic, that we've really enjoyed observing and taking in. The creativity of the community knows no bounds, and we're always impressed by that.
Can't get enough of that community work. This next question comes from Juicebox. Juicebox, you've been invited to speak.
Hey, my question is there a possibility that you can add mobile players on the Steam version of My Singing Monsters?
Hello, Juicebox. The way that the Steam version of My Singing Monsters was built was a technical and design consideration that we made in order to preserve the integrity of that experience. So there are no plans at this time to introduce cross-compatibility between those two platforms. We know it's something that the community has been asking for, but it is a decision that we're sticking to for the time being, just to keep those in sort of separate hubs, separate experiences.
All right. This next question comes from Blake at Stake. Blake, you've been invited to speak.
Okay, I wasn't expecting that, but okay, here's my question. Okay, you know how there's been canceled like monsters, like for example, like Deuce and the Lyrics. Well, have there ever been any like canceled islands? Like, what were their like designs? Like, why were they canceled? What was their development history? That's just something I'm curious about.
Thanks for your question, Blake at Stake. Curiously, in the history of My Singing Monsters and Dawn of Fire, there haven't been too many examples of us getting far enough along with an idea and then canceling it. We usually just sort of adapt existing ideas that we have and make sure that all the creative work that's gone into it, both from a musical and a monster design standpoint, get a chance to see the light of day in one form or another. I don't know if I've ever sort of revealed this fact before, but it will probably come as little surprise to many people to know that the 4 magical islands did not begin as magical islands. They were other kinds of islands that bore a greater resemblance to the islands that came before it in terms of which elements were on it. But we wanted to diverge from that particular path and basically embark on a new chapter in My Singing Monsters history. So whatever we had planned for those particular islands became the magical islands and gave us a pretty populous monster class. I was just taking a look at the numbers of this the other day. Obviously, with the completion of Magical Sanctum and the addition of Enchantling, that particular group of magical monsters, I think numbers 43, which is pretty impressive considering that if you want to exclude fire from the natural elements for the purposes of this conversation, that the natural monsters are number only 30. So it's pretty cool that we were able to bring that many new monsters to the game with the design choice to create these magical islands.
Very cool, and a very cool little piece of information there. Thank you, Matt, for that. This next question comes from Miles MXGT. Miles, you've been invited to speak. Oh, you're currently muted, Miles.
Sorry. Do you know how there's like the island Psychic, Fairy, Bone, and Light, right? Do you think there's going to be like a separate magical element island called the Dragon Island?
Thank you for your question, Miles. I know that there was quite a popular community momentum that thought that perhaps the quad of Magical Sanctum was going to be dragon shaped or dragon inspired or anything like that. Speaking purely from a business standpoint, to put on my business hat for a second, there are lots of other games out there that have dragons as their central feature, as their the inspiration behind all of their collectibles and their characters and stuff like that. So it's something that we've consciously tried to steer away from. For the design of My Singing Monsters, we really want, when we're designing monsters, for it to look like something you haven't necessarily seen before, or that you haven't thought would count as a monster before. So the idea of introducing something like a dragon element hasn't ever really crossed our minds creatively, because there's lots to do with dragons out there in the world, and we want to try and sort of march to the beat of our own drum and steer clear of that for now.
Matt, as you know, I love your detailed answers, but for that one, you could have just said no instead of dragging on.
Oh, Monster Handler Eric, I knew that you were going to drop in with a pun at some point. And I should mention that I like dragons. I personally like dragons. But as a Monster Handler, I feel like we can do better.
All right. This next question comes from Antblau. Antblau, you've been invited to speak. Okay, if Antblau does not step onto the stage. Oh, there we go.
Monster Handlers, can you hear me good?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my question is, can you reveal anything about the new island coming this year?
Antblau, what are you talking about? A new island coming this year. I jest, of course. I believe in a previous Handler Hangout, I did allude to the fact that it wouldn't be much of a Year of the Monster if we didn't have at least one more trick up our sleeves. At this time, I don't want to give too much away about the next island that we have planned in the My Singing Monsters mythos, but I can say that I think it will answer a question that people have had about My Singing Monsters and its lore for many, many, many years. So we look forward to that sort of level of wish fulfillment and of knowledge. And Monster Handlers in training, Bianca and Tyson, this is interesting for you, of course, because in the short time that you've been with the company, you've had to basically speed run through your Monster Handler training to get on board with all of the years of lore and backstory and community theories. So what's that been like for you two, trying to do all of that work compressed into such a short amount of time? Can you describe that experience for us?
That is a great question, Monster Handler Matt. And let me say, it has been quite the journey. I'm so thankful that we have monster handlers like yourself and like Monster Handler Eric and Monster Handler Michael to help us understand all of the lore theories and understand even how to pronounce certain monster names or elements of the game, because as you mentioned, My Singing Monsters likes to be original in their designs and concepts, and so sometimes that means that words are completely made up and you have to learn how to pronounce them properly. And so that has been a journey in itself, but everyone's been super helpful to be able to learn everything. And I would say that even though I've been here since January, that the title of Monster Handler in Training is definitely still applicable to me.
Yes. And, when you get a new job and you are told you got to study up on all the Monster World lore, you don't really know how to respond to that. So I didn't really know what to expect. And my first week here was pretty much just studying up on everything. Which was really awesome and interesting to learn all the lore and get to know all the different monsters in the world and everything like that. But also it's very interesting also because we get to speed run some of the lore, but we are sworn to secrecy and cannot say anything right now. But what's coming is very exciting.
Well, there you go. A nice little extra hint there. This next question comes from Chili Guy. Chili Guy, you've been invited to speak.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can.
I have two questions. My first question is wherever the Colossals will ever wake up to make music? And my second question is, will there ever be a seasonal island?
Thank you for your questions, Chili Guy. Your first question, will the Colossals ever wake up? Definitely an enduring question that we've had for a really long time. We've thought about a couple of different ideas of how to awaken the Colossals, whether that be even if it's just sort of purely a story experience or a game mechanic or stuff like that. And it might still be something that we visit in the future. But for the time being, the Colossals are happy to just sort of sleep their deep sleep and slumber and reach out to each other with their minds across the vast distances of the monster world and just sort of resonate with each other rather than it being sort of a conscious experience of creating music. But it would definitely be interesting to revisit that idea one day. And with respect to your second question, will there ever be a seasonal island? You know, I'm not entirely sure. What we do know about the seasonal monsters is that they're largely migratory, right? So unlike monsters that have fixed abodes on the various habitats across the monster world, monsters like Yule and Schmoochel, we know that they sort of spend a good time of the year on the road, so to speak. Yule in its comet, Schmoochel using its own wings to get airborne, Blabbit in its in the bubble that it blows for itself. So that's sort of the unique trait that we've given to seasonal monsters at this time. But who knows? Who knows what the future might bring? There might be something else out there. I don't know.
Well, going from the future to the past, Pico would like to ask, what inspired you to make Colossingum?
Yes, the Colossingum. The Colossingum is cool because it gave us an opportunity to basically revisit some of the ideas that we had when we were first creating a social feature or, you know, a new feature for MegaMonsters. When we created Tribal Island, we sort of connected these ideas in lore in the sense that both of those islands were founded by colossal monsters who had differing ideas about how to, shall I put it, mount a defense for the monster world in the event that the harmony and peace of it was ever disrupted by any sort of malevolent force or anything like that. But what was cool is that it sort of harkened back to the differences that you can have in music. Tribal Island is very much about an ensemble, very much about different musical performers coming together to create a whole song. And on the Colossingum, of course, it's more about the individual experience. It's more of like the soloist who wants to sort of have all the music to themselves and wants to train themselves to this sort of, you know, maestro level in order to be, you know, prodigious in their musical craft. So that was sort of a cool idea. In terms of the design itself, I remember when we were first naming the Colossingum, I think there was one monster handler of Little Faith who said, "Well, we have to change that name." But the more we thought about it, we liked it. We thought that the name stuck, and of course that inspired the imagery of the island itself, and of course has references back to sort of like gladiatorial combat here in the history of the human world. But of course, what's nice about the Colossingum is that it's non-violent, of course, right? It's just sort of a musical competition. Join the musical fray. So in terms of what inspired us to do the Colossingum, it was basically us wanting to go down a new design path and see if there was something else that MegaMonsters players were interested in participating in. And there was a lot of hard work just to bring it to light, but very much worth it. We're very proud of the Colossal.
Indeed. All right, this next question comes from Rare Flushed Corn. Rare Flushed Corn, you've been invited to speak. You are currently muted, Rare Flushed Corn.
Hello.
Hello.
So, Epic Who's description says that she's a DJ, but isn't Common Hoola the actual DJ who won the Sky Box?
Rare flushed corn. That's a great question, and your confusion makes sense because this is something that we sort of had to sort out for ourselves at the Monster Handler level when we were sort of crafting this whole experience. Perhaps Monster Handler Eric can speak to this a little bit more, but what we've come to learn in the years since first being introduced to the idea of DJs in the monster world and DJ Epic and everything to do with that is that basically it's its own sort of private creative outlet for all three Hoola cousins, both the common and the rare and the epic gets involved. The rare perhaps the least of the three, but Common Hoola, of course, is the performer who sort of dons the helmet, and I think Epic Hoola is there very much collabing behind the scenes and sort of serving as the producer, if you want to use that comparison. And of course, Eric, you can perhaps speak to this a little bit more, but we devised the idea of DJ Epic to first reveal Epic Hoola all the way back in 2019.
That's right. In classic Hoola trickster fashion, we decided to set up DJ Epic to appear to be the Epic that was going to be revealed, only to show that, of course, it was regular Hoola underneath the helmet. But yes, as Matt said, DJ Epic is sort of a team operation where Hoola is sort of the front monster, if you will. Epic Hoola is more of the producer behind the scenes, and then Rare Hoola is a bit more of the technical stage side, all of the lights and the setup you see. That's really their domain. And I mean, even the other seasonals are getting in on the DJ game now. They've all been collaborating with DJ Epic, so really there's no limit to how many DJs are lurking in the monster world.
That's right. They've been bringing such remixes to life as the Warm-Hearted Waltz from this past season of Love and Slippery Customer for Blabbit. Very, very, very exciting collabs.
Okay, we've got just a few more minutes here. We're going to try to whip through a few more questions. If you do have a question specifically for the monster handlers in training, please shoot me that in a DM so we can get that ahead. And otherwise, we will go to Spongetillo. Spongetillo, you have been invited to speak.
Well, here we are again. Wait. Oh no! It's happening again. My brain is. Oh, hold on. Cogs are turning. Now I had two questions, but I will just pick one and save the next one for the next handler hangout, just to make things quicker for you guys. This one's mostly out of curiosity. If the quad element monsters are considered the bosses, what are the quint element monsters?
That's a great question, Spongetillo. Obviously, when we were first making My Singing Monsters, we envisioned quads as being the ultimate, the most elements that a monster could have, and that's why the designs of monsters like Entbrat, Deej, Riff, Shellbeat, Chorister, we wanted them to feel very connected to the elements of their islands and make them very impressive looking and grandiose and take up 3x3 grid squares and stuff like that. Obviously, when we made Dawn of Fire and we said, well, we're going to be introducing this new element, and we're going to be, we're very enamored with the idea of this one sort of core island, which was the working name for the continent, this one core island where all of those elements would be. Obviously, the idea of Quint Element Monsters was born, and then we thought, well, okay, how are we going to sort of reconcile that with the idea of the quads being bosses? And I think, did you like that voice crack? I think that how we envision the quints is less so in a leadership role and more so in sort of like a wise sage sort of role that serves to inspire other monsters. They're sort of like role models. We've described quad element monsters in the same way, but quint element monsters are less sort of like how we were just describing Epic Hoola as being not necessarily the front monster of the DJ Epic outfit, but Quint Element Monsters. And of course, you've only discovered the two to date, Candelabra and Dromedary. But those two monsters, I think, have a more specific connection to one of the 6 natural elements, in this particular instance, fire included. And that's what sort of draws other monsters to them, to try and understand how they can sort of commune with and be aligned with the elements of the monster world.
All right, this next question comes from Abed Shark 10. Abed Shark 10, you have been invited to speak. We are running short on time, so if you don't have a chance to step up to the microphone, there we go.
Hello, sorry, I didn't see the accept button. It's up top. So I've got a question I've got for the handlers in training. Obviously, something that I know is like a big thing that you guys do at your company is just everyone gets their own mug, and a lot of them has a bunch of wacky monsters on them. So my question is, do you guys have your own personalized mugs yet? And if so, what monsters are on them? And also just, what's the weirdest monster you've seen on a mug in the office?
Well, I haven't gotten a mug yet. However, I think this is a nice little job for maybe Monster Handler Eric and Monster Handler Matt to maybe gift Bianca and I some mugs. If you
What a segue. Okay, well, all right, Eric, we'll get organized. We'll make them some mugs.
That's right. And as we said before, I'm a big Flog fan, and Bianca.
I think I would go for Sponge. I mean, if we're putting the request in, if we're doing this. So.
And we all know in the community that Monster Handler Eric and Monster Handler Matt are very generous people. So I assume they will deliver on this.
Wow. All right.
I don't see how we could avoid it at this point.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yes.
If we don't go through with this will be bad.
So we with that said, we'll update you when we get our mugs and show them off.
Excellent. Yeah, I look forward to a photo of that. Okay, we've got time for one more question here. We'll throw it to Rebecca, the Rebegart. Rebecca, you have been invited to speak.
Oh.
Hello
there. This has been a question I've been thinking about. You know the magical exclusive fire monsters like Sousa, Rudy Toon, Ziggurat, Rumble. And my question is, how do they all get to the magical islands? And all the fire monsters were kind of out in the fire haven when they all got rediscovered.
It's an excellent question, Rebecca. In terms of how those fire monsters, specifically the fire sort of exclusives of the magical islands, how they sort of got there. When we were first envisioning the idea of the magical islands, what we wanted to do is basically use Fire Oasis as the base of operations for fire monsters to lead the charge to explore areas of the monster world that had maybe fallen out of memory or that had been lost to time or that, for which legends only existed, sort of thing. So when we were first envisioning how we were going to sort out the magical islands, we thought it'd be cool for fire monsters to form these sort of search parties, these expeditions to go and search different corners of the monster world. And we sort of envisioned those particular little expedition parties to be led by different fire monsters. And when those monsters sort of ended up on their respective magical islands, we sort of described them as like the fire delegation, and included the natural monsters in there with them. But they're sort of like representatives of the rest of the monster world to basically welcome the newly discovered magical elementals to like the official singing monster fold. And of course, different magical islands were discovered in different ways. Obviously, Fire Frontier was actually Psychic Island all along, and then the Psychic Elementals made themselves known. Fairy Island was discovered in a unique way in the sense that Kana, atop the Babiog Tower, was sort of spirited away in the night and sort of made its way to the Facade Titan with Fairy Island. We know all about Stog and Bone Island, and then of course finally with Light Island there was. That was Sponge. You'd like this, Bianca. It was Sponge blowing out the anniversary month cake with such gusto, with such force, that all the lights were snuffed out, and then those monsters sort of found themselves, when the beautiful Aurora Monstralis appeared in the sky above on the fourth and final magical island. So those fire monsters you can sort of look on them as ambassadors from Fire Oasis, which is like the surface operations of the monster world for fire elementals.
You know, it's
Okay.
too bad that Sponge isn't there to help Shugabush blow out his candles today, but I think they'll do okay without him.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And with that, we'll wish one final happy birthday to Shugabush here. And that will bring an end to this Handler Hangout. Thank you so much, everyone who tuned in and asked excellent questions. If your question didn't get answered this time, do not worry. We will be back for another Handler Hangout, probably next month, I would guess. But not penned in yet. But we'll pencil it in for now, and we'll let you guys know when we have a more specific date. As always, thank you to Monster Handler Matt for hanging out and answering all of these tough questions.
My pleasure. Yes, they were. It was a great cross section of questions this time.
Very good variety, and of course, thank you to the Monster Handler in Training, the MHIT, Bianca and Tyson. Thank you guys so much for taking time out of your busy days to hang out and answer some questions as well.
Thanks for having us, everyone. And as always, we definitely learned lots of stuff today, thanks to Monster Handler Matt and Monster Handler Eric. So thanks for asking questions today.
Yes, thank you very much.
Happy monstering!
And with that, everything pretty much wraps up to close. Oh, I remembered one thing I wanted to say. Since I am the video person, I've seen some people pointing out that in the SummerSong video, there is an outfit dancing, a trench coat, and people are saying that's Deej in disguise. I'm going to tell you right now, Deej isn't in that outfit, and I'm just going to leave that with you to figure it out. And that'll be the end of that.
This is even news to me. What an exciting cliffhanger.
That's right. You'll have to investigate Monster Handler, Matt. You'll have to try to piece it together.
Geez. All right.
All right, but we have to get back to our very busy work monster handling here at Big Blue Bubble. So we will leave you with the classic phrase that we always leave with and just say, Happy Monster Day!
Bye, everybody.